Yeah.
Okay, Julie, at
Yeah.
6:30.
Because I think it's good that we get together.
Oh, without a doubt. You're right. I agree.
Ken Dawson.
Here.
Chris Espinoza.
Here.
Cheryl Fuller. Here.
Sorry.
Jenny Hagstrom.
Here.
Terry Pavasich.
Here.
Don Renner.
Here.
Gianna Hunshi.
Here.
And Alan Mocap.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, we have a quorum. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I keep wanting to, after I say that.
All right, tonight we're going to start with student perspectives.
Nope.
South
No,
High.
I'm sorry.
Come on up for my
South High.
4-H class.
I like those moves, though.
Practiced. Hi, everybody. Arwen Lipp, principal at Downers Grove South. Ms. Martinez, our director of student activities, and I work together every time we have the opportunity to showcase a group of students here at the board meeting. And we're really excited tonight to highlight Student Council. We were sitting and reflecting and thinking on really what a fabulous start to the school year we've had, how many different activities and events have really helped our You Belong Here motto come to life. And when we reflected and went through it, and I want you all to hear this too, so much of what we've done has been led and implemented by Student Council. These four young leaders, their sponsors, Chris Esposito and Jenny Wolf, and also led by Jen Martinez. We're just so proud. So I'm going to let them talk. I'm going to first introduce Lily, and then we're going to hear from Isabel, Grace, and Juliana, and I'm excited for you to hear what they've been doing.
Hi everyone. Thank you so much for having us here. It's like such a big pleasure to be able to come and share what we've been doing. This year we've had a lot of different opportunities to showcase what we've done and like the resources we've had to be able to like show the school what we've been able to do. And one of our big things was the You Belong Here. Starting from the beginning of the year, that's been just like implemented in every way possible, and it's really amazing to see where that's been able to go. I was able to speak to the freshmen on the first day of school, and I was able to mention that You Belong Here, and I just really think that throughout that time since then, I've just been able to see it throughout the entire school. So in our presentation, we have different aspects of where we've implemented that, both within the school and our community. So we're excited to share that. So my friends are going to come up here and we're going to talk about it. So I'm Lily, I'm a senior, and I'm the president.
Hi, I'm Juliana. I'm a junior, and I'm one of the vice presidents.
Hi, my name is Grace. I'm a senior, and I'm the other vice president.
Hi, I'm Isabel. I'm a senior. I'm the communications officer.
And then if you
Just tell me when to advance.
Yeah.
You ready?
Perfect. Okay.
So I'm going to talk about Halloween Fun Fair. This is an annual event that Student Council plans and runs. This is essentially a community trunk or treat. So members of the community get to come to the school for free, and different clubs each set up. It was indoors this year because of weather, but normally it's outside, and they set up a trunk of a car and decorate it, and they have games that kids from the community can participate in, and they get candy. So it's a really great way to get involved with the community. It's wonderful for community outreach. The kids and the parents love it, and it is one of our main things that we do, and something that we are very, very proud of. And it was very successful this year, despite the change that we had to make from outside to inside on very short notice.
And that's just some more pictures from the event.
Cool.
Okay, so the next event we did was school-wide bingo. This took place during homecoming week this year, and this was our kind of way to like get involved with the week leading up to the homecoming dance. So we passed out bingo sheets to each access class for students and teachers, and we also had some available in student activities for those who wanted to participate. And on the block days, we would send out the bingo numbers during block periods and resource periods, so that kids, even when they had like resource or lunch, could like play bingo and like fill out their sheets along with them. And when they got bingo, they could go to student activities to get prizes, and we passed out stickers, bucket hats, DGS merch. So yeah, and this was our way to kind of include students and staff and get them really involved and spirited during the week of homecoming. And that's more pictures.
And then one of those prizes was the Southside sticker. So at the beginning of the school year, all students received or had the opportunity to receive a Southside Strong shirt. And we valued that motto just throughout the school year, along with You Belong Here. So I was able to have the opportunity to take that logo and turn it pink. One, because of Barbie Pink and our homecoming thing, but also because of homecoming took place during October, so breast cancer awareness. And we, throughout the week, our school was able to raise and donate to the Susan G. Komen Foundation. So it was really important to me to be able to find that connection from students and bring that into our community once more.
So another upcoming event we have is working with the foundation Blessings in a Backpack. We had a parent from District 58 reach out to Student Council asking DGS students to help District 58 families in need. So we're going to be making 500 bags with motivational cards to give to them.
Very good.
And yeah, that's all for what we've been able to do this year. It's been really amazing to share all of our experiences and to be able to keep pushing for that student involvement, which was really important to us. From the start of the school year, we met over the summer, and that was a big thing, was like, how do we get people involved? Our favorite thing is our Instagram. We've been able to use it a lot more this year. We post on it, all of our bingo numbers were shared on it, so it's been really cool to just take this new perspective to what Student Council can be and be able to share it with all the students in the school. So thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Questions from board members?
Yes. So the Halloween fund, and how is that funded for you guys? Are you raise money, or, I mean, that's so cool to have the candy and all that. I've never even thought about it.
Yeah, so all the candy comes from our student activity. So me and Ms. Martinez work very closely that week. So we're able to get our funding from them. And then we're also, I don't think, from my knowledge, we don't bring anything from that event, but it's really important. It's a good way for just the community to get involved and just really come together, because it's so fun, just looking around, you're like, oh, all these kids, they're all together, and some of them know each other, and then maybe later on they'll see each other in a picture that they took when they get to high school. So it's just a different event that brings so many different age ranges too. There was little babies to middle schoolers, so it was really cool.
Question,
Yeah.
the 500 bags you guys are putting together, what, are those backpacks, or what kind of bags are you putting together? Just small bags?
I think
or?
we haven't done this, so this is the first time doing this event, so we're really excited to see how it goes, but from my knowledge, it is backpacks.
Where are the backpacks going to come from? Do you know
I think
yet?
it's from the foundation. So Blessings in a Backpack is a general, not general, but it's a large organization. So being able to, so that's coming from one parent, I think works closely with them, and they're bringing them for us.
Wow.
Yeah. And so the students are coming mostly a little bit more than half from Student Council, but also from Key Club, which is another organization.
And then you guys will prepare them and stuff them and get everything together.
Next Monday, a week from today.
So this is only November, so we're talking about September and October, and you guys have accomplished all that. I just can't wait to see what's going to happen the rest of the school year.
I'm excited too.
Yeah, you guys are doing a fantastic job.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, student board member reports.
Keep the South theme going. You want to start first?
Sure. Okay. So hi board members. So for the past, last time we met, we had our homecoming, and that went off, and everyone loved it. There was a lot of feedback from it, especially seeing how it was indoor this year. And along with that, we had our homecoming parade. And that was also fun to see, along with the trunk or treat. That was another community kind of outreach. We got to go around this area over here and give out candy to those little kids. And I actually participated in the student council part of the parade, and we were behind Dr. Thiele's car.
It wasn't my car.
Okay, well,
A really cool car.
It was a cool car, and it is not my car.
Right,
Yeah.
so we were behind them, and we didn't really get candy, but we were right behind him, so we kind of said that student council funded Dr. Thiele's candy. So that way, and if anybody asked, because all we had was a sign and then no candy. But yeah, it was a good experience, no doubt. And we all got to, again, like see those little kids and begging for that candy, but having that experience, you know, that memory. And then along with that, we also had 2 cross-country runners go to state this weekend, and our boy cross-country runner, Josh, he is a senior, and he finished top 35 in the state, while our girl cross-country runner, she finished top 25 in the state. So they both did very good for their seasons, and we're excited to see one of the girls a junior, so we're excited to see where she'll be next year. And then along with that, November is that time where we're all like striving to get our grades up because there's a few more tests until, you know, winter break and all, but we're also looking very forward to Thanksgiving break. So there's that too. And there's a few like grateful things we're doing for Thanksgiving. For example, like our gobblegrams, where we're selling those through Key Club, and we can those are just meant for like, they just write a note, you would pay $1 for a note, and those will be delivered through the classrooms throughout the day of Thanksgiving week, and that way like you can give it to your friends, teachers, just to show that you're grateful for them, right? And then along with that, seniors just had their the first deadline for college apps, so we're all a little bit more calm and relaxed, and there's one more deadline left, so there's that too for seniors. So overall, we're having a good November, and we're excited for Thanksgiving and winter break eventually.
On the north side of things, we had homecoming as well. There was definitely, we got a lot of feedback on it being inside versus outside. There were pros and cons to both. With outside, it was a lot cooler and like less scrunched, and there was a lot more room, because inside it was in our purple gym, and these poor people that were running the water stand at the stands, like the water was just going, and it was in these like little cups, like these like little Gatorade cups, and I don't think there was like an empty cup on the table at all, or like a full cup on the table, because people just kept taking them. It was really, really hot in that room. But the inside had a really cool stage setup, and even though it was inside, there was an outdoor option in case you wanted to go outside. So that was definitely a really good feature of it. The photo booth was so fun. I love the photo booth. That was awesome. And then the Spirit Days had mixed reviews. So all in all, like most of them were really good. It was like mostly good feedback on the Spirit Days. So that was fun. And then for sports, North had a very good sports weekend, gotta say. North had a really good sports weekend. Yeah. Our cross-country team finished first in state, which is awesome. And our boys cross-country team, and then our girls cross-country team finished second in state. And the football team beat Hershey, which is also awesome. So we have our next game on Saturday. So I will be there. Lincoln Way West, right? Yeah. So we will be there. And then we also, we just had our first student choice day for Access. And that went off really well. A couple students had a little bit of trouble figuring out which room they were supposed to be in, just because they chose it like a week and a half ago. So they were like, where am I supposed to go? But they really liked being able to choose earlier. Most students said they really liked to be able to choose earlier. However, there were some students that were like, I don't know when I need help until the day before. So maybe just like keeping the deadline window open a little bit longer. People really liked the open gym. That one filled up really quickly. And then another feedback we got was the access lessons. Most access lessons take around 10 minutes. So maybe putting more access lessons into one day, so like doubling up on access lesson days, so that way there's more room for student choice. That way students are really able to utilize what access is supposed to be about. But yeah, good stuff.
Awesome, thank you. Any questions?
Is that the first time in history that our cross-country team has finished men's first, women's second? I mean, that's just a phenomenal accomplishment in the state like that.
I believe that's the best finish for the teams that we've had.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Last year we were third and fifth. Boys were third, girls were fifth. So this year, 1, 2. I'm pretty sure it was the best finish we've had.
That's fantastic.
It'll be the best finish until next year.
Yeah. Bring home those first place trophies next year.
And I'd like to compliment Dr. Dement for organizing a fantastic celebration
Yes.
at DGN that was well attended. I showed up around 7 o'clock in the Learning Commons, and there were about 5 people in there, including Terry, myself, Dr. Dement, and maybe 2 other people. And we went outside, and there were hundreds of people outside awaiting eagerly and with great anticipation. And then we came inside, and then the boys and the girls walked in to much applause. And I can tell you that both teams were very grateful for that acknowledgement by the community. And it was special, and it's a special day for them, and it's a special time for them to be able to celebrate like that. And they're in a sport that is not basketball and it's not football, right? So having an opportunity like that is unique for them. So I was very appreciative of that.
And the memories that those student athletes will take away from that are priceless. I mean, that's something that they will remember their whole life. I mean, when I think about it, it reminds me of, as long ago as it was, but the Super Bowl celebration that once upon a time we had in Chicago. But it's just amazing. Those student athletes will remember that for their whole life. So that is just fantastic.
It's really special how sports bring our community together, and it really doesn't matter which sport, but it has this really unique way of bringing us all to the same place in joy and in happiness and in celebration, and it was just really, really cool. So thank you.
I did inform Dr. Dement this morning, this is 2 years in a row with state championships in sports, so she's just got to keep it going.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll try. We're on a good streak right now.
You are on a good streak.
Yes. Saturday will tell the tale.
Yeah.
We also have swimming Wednesday night.
That's right.
We do.
Yeah.
We still
And we
have
had
swimmers
some
at both
tennis girls go
schools, right?
skate.
Still going.
And is that at Westmont again?
Yes, at the natatorium right over here.
Best place.
I have no slips for reception.
No public comment? Okay.
All right, school report card. I'll let you drive.
So last month, I guess it was
Last
already.
month, yeah.
Last month, I presented about SAT scores. They were preliminary. And I shared that the school report card would be coming out on October 30th, which it did. This year, unlike some of the previous years, we're going to have several presentations, 3 to be exact, on different components in the school report card. So a little bit shorter and a little bit more focused, rather than having one that lasts, an hour or an hour and a half. So we'll go shorter this year. So today,
Thank you,
I'm
Gina.
gonna focus. I'm just gonna move on. So key areas. Today I'm gonna talk a little bit about the summative designation. I'm gonna talk about some of the school report card changes. Every year there's changes, and quite frankly, I think that the state did a fantastic job with some of the changes in this year's report card. So I'm really excited about that. And then we'll talk today about graduation rates. So those are the 3 areas that I'll talk about tonight. So I mentioned the summative designation, and there's a lot on this screen, but essentially I wanted to share that both North and South received a rating of commendable. And we pretty much have since the rating started. It's been a little bit of a history in the sense with COVID occurring, so the first couple of years we were commendable, then they carried the designations over, then there was a year of not assigning them, and now we're back to assigning them. So we've continued to be rated as commendable. There were 4 designations. There's now sort of a 5th one this time. But to be commendable, you need to have it where none of your subgroups are underperforming. So you have to have, so all your subgroups need to be performing. For a high school, the graduation rate has to be at least 67%, which ours is substantially over that. But we do not fall in the top 10% of schools. So the top rating's exemplary, that's the top 10%. Then there's commendable, which is by far the bulk of schools. And then there's a couple ratings below that, targeted, comprehensive, and now there's this intensive group as well. So in order to think about it this way, we get a score based on a number of indicators. Indicators like SAT, math proficiency, evidence-based reading and writing proficiency, science, EL. There's a number of scores, which I'll show you in just a minute. And then we get a total score, and they take all the high schools and they just list them. And then when they get to 10%, they draw the line, as long as you don't have any of those, like I talked about, no underperforming subgroups, as long as your graduation rate is 67%, and that's where they draw the line. And there's some other factors that go into that. So we, again, are considered commendable.
What does it take to be in the top? Like, what is the graduation rate?
So it's a comparison.
Okay.
So it's a comparison. So it's always going to be a moving target. It's not about attainment, right? It's not like if you get this score, you are exemplary. Or if you get this score, I guess you could look at it the other way, you're comprehensive. It's a comparison to other schools. So it continues to be a moving target. But I'm going to show you in a couple of slides how close we are. Okay? So I said I wanted to mention some of the key changes. One of the changes I really like is the schoolhouse visual, which I'm going to show you in a couple of minutes. I think that's a nice way of laying it out. So when the public or even educators go in and look, it's right there. You can kind of see where we land. The Illinois Science Assessment, when I say this year, it's really last year, but this year's report card, was not about participation. So in the previous year, it was about participation. In other words, the percent of students who were supposed to take the test that actually did test. Now it's based on proficiency, and that will continue moving forward. There were some changes to chronic absenteeism, the way it's calculated specifically. They altered it in 2022, and now we're back to the previous way it was calculated. The way it was altered in 2022 did not impact us. It was about schools that declined by a certain percentage got bonus points. That is an area of focus for us. That is an area that we're working on. It's an area that we'll present about in December. So we did not get those bonus points, but that is a key change this year that now they're going back to the previous calculation. And then for the first year, they started reporting on the indicators. You may recall several years ago, we did several presentations about college and career readiness indicators and what it would mean for a student to be considered a distinguished scholar or college and career ready. And this report card, even though these indicators do not impact our summative designation, in other words, they don't impact our rating, the data is there. And this is really an opportunity for the state to get the information out there as schools work through some of the kinks with that data. These are huge data sets. And so that's something that the state is working on and that schools are working on, and I can tell you for sure it's something that we are working on. So to give you an example, some things that are up there, junior and senior attendance. For juniors and senior students, the expectation is that it would be 95%. You can go in and look at how we rated on that. Also the fine arts indicator, which will not impact us for a few years, it's also on there. So there's some information that's available in the report card that isn't impacting our designation, but that ultimately may, or will, in terms of the fine arts indicator, it will. But we have a couple of years on that. So, wanted to talk a little bit about the schoolhouse visual, and this is obviously a PowerPoint, right? But if you were to log in and look at one of our high schools, so this right here is obviously South High School, there's a schoolhouse. This did not exist up until this year, so even though there's 2023 in the corner, it looks like you can pull it down, there's nothing to pull down. But it will in future years be there to pull down. And as you can see, and while there are some blank areas, which is sort of interesting, you can see where the different ratings come from. So for example, about half of that bottom part of that schoolhouse is graduation rate. Well, half of our rating is based on graduation rate. You can see on the left side ELA proficiency in math, and then you can see some of the other scores. One of the scores that's not listed there is the science assessment. So there's a instant kind of look at how we're doing in terms of that schoolhouse, which I really like because it's a nice, quick look. What's really nice about it
What's the
is if you-
2.161?
Oh, that's EL Progress to Proficiency. So EL Progress to Proficiency came out of several years ago before the pandemic. And it looks at how long it takes our students to become proficient. Proficient means it's based on one score. It's called the access test. We give it every year near February, but there's a window. And if students score a 4.8 on that composite, so the composite score for the test, basically reading, writing, listening, and speaking, they graduate out of EL. They're no longer considered EL. They're like former EL students. The state has also set, and it's very individualized by student, benchmarks of growth for students. And ultimately, a student from that first year that they're identified are given roughly 5 years. There was an added year during the pandemic, but that's going away, to become proficient. And while you might say, well, we're a high school district, we only have them for 4 years, so how does that even factor in? It's from when that student is identified. So even if that student is identified in 4th grade, if that student is still EL for us, it factors into our rating. Okay, and in the upper right, that's science, where it's purple, sorry, Don. That's purple, and then the climate survey, which I don't know why the percentages aren't there. I think
You
ultimately
gotta
they will
hover over
be.
them to see right now.
Yeah, I'll show you in just
Yeah.
a sec on the next screen. I'm sorry.
So what does it mean, 2.16 of
5%. So we got 2.16% out of 5%.
Okay.
Same way on graduate, this is South High.
Yeah.
Yes.
The designations are per school. Districts do not get a designation. So it's not like we have a District 99 designation. And you only are going to see the graphic by school. So for a graduation rate, for example, it's 50% of our rating. South High had 48.71%.
Didn't that chronic absenteeism?
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry?
Chronic absenteeism?
Yes, we only got 3.62% out of 10%. That's an area that we are definitely focused on and have been.
Meaning you want a higher number?
Yeah,
We
you
want to
Yeah.
get to 10%.
Percent. Yeah.
Right, we want a higher number.
Because you don't want.
That's not how
that-
that's not the percentage of students that are
No.
chronic absent.
It's the percent of the
That's-
indicator.
Yeah, that's how many points we earned out of the
Out
possible
of the
points.
possible 10?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And what's really nice is there's reports where we can actually drill down. And as Hank said, we can hover over. Now, this is not live, so I just gave you one example. But you can hover over. So in this example, I'm hovering over the ELA proficiency, that blue box on the left. And it shows you what the indicator score is, what the weighted score is, so 7.5, and what we obviously got the full 7.5. On all 3 of the testing indicators, if you hover over, you'll see the percentage that we received was full percents. The one area too for graduation rate is something I'm gonna talk about later, so I'll circle back to that.
And the overall score of 84.09, meaning we're in the 84th percentile of schools in Illinois?
We received 84% out of 100, so we received 84.09 points out of 100.
What's the exception, 90?
It's
That's-
technically
that's
the
what I was
top
asking, but it doesn't
10%
sound
that's
like it.
exemplary, which would be, you would consider over 90, but I'll show you in just a minute
Okay.
where that cutoff occurred, and I believe that is due to like ties, where schools receive the same scores.
Okay.
So let's go to North real quick, and then I'll take you to that, okay? So this is the same idea. This is obviously North High School. So where South had 84.06, I think it was, North received 87.28, so about 3 points more. You can see one area where they received higher points would be, for example, in graduation rate, a little bit, and then a little bit in chronic absenteeism. And then the same idea, I decided in this one just to show you a different hovering over to go with science. And science isn't identified, as you can see, it doesn't say science, but that's what that purple is.
The little box in the corner.
Yeah, the little,
By
on the,
Travis.
Right, above climate
Thank you,
survey.
Travis.
And I'm hopeful in time that will end up all filled in, like next year with the report card, but this is a huge step towards making it really easy to understand.
Yeah.
I think it's a great, great step forward.
So one of the things I want to highlight, we sent out, and are you going to get there, as to where we got all of our points? Am I stepping on your toes? Where we got
Go
all
ahead.
of our points? Go
Go,
ahead, Hank,
go,
talk
go.
over to.
Go.
Can you go back?
Oh, yes.
I just think it's important for the board to see that in this scoring, that in all of the areas of standardized assessments, so English, math, science, both schools receive 100% of their points, right? Graduation rate, Gene will go into, nearly all of our points. There's a couple of areas where we can make up some ground, and climate survey is an easy, low-hanging fruit to hit this year. But then there's now it starts to get tougher, like ELA proficiency, where, as Gene will talk later on this school year, like you're talking 5, 6, 7 years of work to move a student to meet that proficiency level. Chronic absenteeism, where we're ranked based on whether or not kids come to school and parents send their kids to school, is not an area where we have a lot of control over what that is, and obviously changes in society have impacted those numbers as well. Ninth grade on track, we'll talk a little bit about, and that has been a major focus for us for the last couple of years. So this is a real nice graphic to help you see where it is we can make up points and try to move. At the same time, every school in the state is doing the same thing, right? Where is the area where we can realistically make up some points? Now it's Eugene, sorry.
So the question was, one of the questions was where does that exemplary come in and the commendable? And so I included this is for South High School, where you can see the schools that were an exemplary received 91.24 or greater. And you can see where South was, so definitely close. And you can see, as I talked about earlier, like the targeted schools and comprehensive schools, where on the opposite end, the dividing line falls. And then the same idea.
So is that the number of schools in each?
I think it's
This
percentage.
percent.
Okay.
Yeah, the percentage of schools.
So in other words, and since I have North up, I'll just use North as an example. For us to fall in the exemplary, we would have had to have 91.24 or greater. And we had North example, 87.28. I like this graphic for a variety of different reasons, because it actually shows us where we landed. The house is nice because it gives you a quick visual. You can hover over it and see it. This is nice because it shows you where you actually landed, which we haven't had the opportunity to view it this way, and the public hasn't had the opportunity to view it in a way that's quick to look at.
Now, the schools that were exemplary, do we have any in DuPage County?
We do.
So we weren't.
We have.
And would you say 91.24 is about, like some years, is it ever higher than that? Or
Every year is gonna be different because
about
they're gonna
that.
rank them and where they all, but again, it's not attainment. It's not
Right.
like if, we know if we got, because next year that number might be 90.9 or,
Yeah.
you know, it's a moving
Whatever
target.
10%
This is a
is.
comparison, right?
Yeah.
So, oh, do you have a question?
I was just, so, we don't know what it's going to be.
No. All we can do is
know-
work.
Oh.
Go ahead.
Well, we do know that to be exemplary, you have to have a graduation rate of 67%, and you have to fall within that 10%. But it's a comparison to all the other schools. So in that sense, we don't.
The cutoff might not always be at 91. Next year, that cutoff could be at
Be
95.
95, yeah.
Could be.
Right?
Sure.
Right? Or it could next year be at 85.
Right.
Like, you don't know.
But does what they weigh change? So for instance, chronic absenteeism, you know, does what they weigh?
The rules change from year to year as well.
Okay.
Yes.
So,
So
like,
it's a
for
moving
example, when I
target.
mentioned fine arts, Remember I mentioned fine arts as being something that's on the report card but doesn't impact us? And I believe it's 24, 25, it will factor in. So things will change a little bit because that will factor in. And for fine arts, they look at two things. They look at enrollment and they look at teachers who are qualified to teach the area in which they're teaching, which all of our teachers are.
But they give you a couple of years, so they
Yes.
introduce a new metric, but they give you some time to.
And we've known about fine arts for
All of these have
like
been in
5
place.
years or.
Yeah.
So it's not like
maybe
year to
more.
year, you're surprised.
No, no,
So we'll
not at
know-
all.
We'll know what they're going to measure
Correct.
next year
We know that now.
now.
So we can work on it.
Right, okay.
But we can't say like, we need to get our score above 90 and then we'll be exemplary, right? We just have to get it as high as we can get it and then hope we're within the top 10% of schools.
Well, and all depends on your class, too.
And every
I
class
mean,
is-
every class and every group of students is different. So it's a variable that sometimes we don't have the control over.
And we're gonna talk about chronic absenteeism, obviously, in December, which I mentioned already. But to also consider that when we're talking about, and that's, if we go back to the graphic, right, that's a huge area for us, of improvement. That also, I just wanna point this out because this always becomes something that people are surprised by. It includes excused absences. So a chronically absent student is a student who's missed 10% or more of the school year.
17 days.
Excused or unexcused. So.
Yeah.
With,
Partial
for
days
exa-
add up to full days?
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
Alright, so if it's a partial day?
yes.
Okay.
And we have.
That's interesting.
We have made some adjustments over the years. We just made an adjustment, or we're in the process, I should say, of making an adjustment. We just met a couple weeks ago to review the way in which we calculate attendance, because now we can go down 2 decimal points, and so we changed some things to impact it that way. That change may have it should have a slightly positive, but the larger issue is we have students missing school.
That's interesting, because how would you, I mean, there's always gonna be students absent in every school, so how would you think that? And then the other thing is, will it weigh in, does it weigh in the number of students too, is that taken into account?
It's a percent, so.
It doesn't, yeah, that's understood, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
one of the areas where I do think it is starting to impact us in terms of some of these scores, like with the EL progress to proficiency, we have had an influx of EL students. In the almost 2 decades I've been in this district, we are, this year, and we started to see it last year too, but we had a huge influx of EL students, and I think that does impact us, not just with ratings, I'm not talking about that, but with programming and with serving all students' needs, as they're coming in with a variety of different needs. It's not just a language barrier in many cases.
It's because we have good programs and people move into our district for those good programs. So
Absolutely.
that's not always a minus, but the state does hold that kind of against us.
So do serve our students.
And
So our overall index score for South 84.09, North 87.28, how does that compare with the prior year?
We did not have this visual to compare.
yeah.
We didn't have the information last
Yeah,
year.
and we didn't have the schoolhouse, and we didn't have, and I know, I'm sorry, I'm clicking back, but I'm trying to show, we didn't have this either.
So on this chart, it seems to me like 23% of school districts, or maybe slightly more than 23% of school districts in Illinois are doing better than South High
On those metrics.
on those metrics.
Yeah.
Does that include community unit school districts, elementary school
This would-
districts, high school districts?
But these would be high schools, yes.
It's not
But
districts,
whether
it's schools.
It's schools, so it's
It's
high schools.
schools.
This is high
This
schools.
is only high schools.
These are high schools, yes. But it doesn't matter if it's a high school district or a unit district.
Okay.
To make sure that
Okay.
we've answered your question.
Still about 700 and some odd high schools in Illinois.
I'd I'd have to check on that now.
So if,
there
if
were
we're
about
meeting
800
our if we're meeting our ELA and math proficiencies and we're basically maxed out on graduation, then what I'm hearing is other districts are doing better in absenteeism than we are.
Yes, many districts are.
Because that's where we're missing most
Or
of
they
these
don't have
points.
EL students,
Or they don't have EL students.
or they had a higher participation rate in their climate survey.
Yeah, we did not get.
The other wing of the school analysis, if you add up those percentages, it's about 83%. So the science and then the climate survey.
Science is 7.5, right?
Uh-huh.
We'll get to the school,
And
so I can give you an exact.
Climate
got?
is,
It's gotta be like 10.
Oh, I need north.
no, it's less than that.
North, hang on. Do you want north or you want south?
No, just hover over so we can see.
So on, oh, I know, but I thought you wanted an exact percentage. So so it's 5%.
Okay.
Climate survey north, we, 6.67% is the weight.
88. So 88 plus what? I'm sorry? The science is what?
Five,
that's
and then
93.
And then 6.67
then that'll-
is
yeah.
climate survey.
Yeah.
And-
Yeah, it adds up to 100%,
Sure.
even though I know it doesn't visually
Yeah.
have everything on it. I think it will. It's something the state's working on. So I think ultimately it will. But they released it with it this way.
And the climate survey is,
The 5 essential survey.
5 essentials.
okay.
And its completion by students and by staff.
And the interesting thing about that is that it's basically, when they look at the percent that we have that completed, both students and staff, they then compare it to the state average. And so it's a comparison, unlike grad rate, for example, or some of the other areas, it's compared to the average of the state, which is interesting because it's one of the only factors where it's compared to that versus, you know.
So do we have pretty good participation?
We could improve our participation. Absolutely.
So, members of the public who look at this and they look at north and, or south, and at north, I would extrapolate that roughly 17 or 18% of high schools in Illinois are performing better than north.
On these metrics.
On these metrics. If I extrapolate that from this report card, is that a fair way to assess our high school? In other words, should we be focused on these results and instituting policy changes just inflate our report card scores because we believe that this report card is a fair assessment of our school district?
So the school report card is built around a research study called Redefining Ready, which looked at research-based methodology that indicated post-secondary student success. So the short answer is, these are variables that research has shown can generally make a difference in students after high school. Students that do well on these tests, that show up at school, that graduate, that are involved, those are all things that indicate. So it's yes and. I don't believe that these are all the metrics that indicate if a school is meeting the needs of their students. You know, I would take the breadth of our curricular offerings in District 99 up against anybody in the country. We could maybe move up some of these numbers if we took some of the resources that we have for all of the course offerings we have for students, reduced course offerings, and then focused more on something else. We could do that, but I don't think that that's the experience that
That's what I'm
people
trying to
look
get at.
for
Yeah.
in this community, right?
Yeah.
So, at the same time, are these good indicators, things that we should work at and try to improve within our course of business? Absolutely. But is it like drop everything and just focus on these? I don't think that that would be the right approach in the district.
That's what I'm trying to get at with that question. I mean, from my perspective, when I think of North and South High and their reputation statewide, and even in DuPage County and the Chicagoland area, I wouldn't classify either school as having that large of a gap of number of high schools in Illinois performing better than our high schools. So clearly something's going on in this report card that is pushing us below what I think our actual performance level is. Or what we think our school is not necessarily what it is. And so that's the crux of the question. How important is this, and what should we be doing to address this? And I think I hear what you're saying, that there are other metrics, that we shouldn't just take this and try and pour every ounce of energy we have to improve this, because we'll be overlooking other things.
Well, and there's some things here that just don't make sense, like chronic absenteeism doesn't make any sense. It's whether or not kids come to school or miss 17 days of school a year for any reason whatsoever. During this time, the state has added 5 mental health days. It's added a variety of different ways in which students can be excused from school. That hasn't changed in the factors. We've gone through a pandemic. The expectations about being at school have changed drastically. A much fairer look at this would be for students that are chronically absent, have we intervened and worked to respond and provide them resources and have tried to make them successful at school? Like, that is things that are under our control. Now, the reason that this is here is it used to be a very strong predictor of student failure to be chronically absent.
But we're meeting our graduation rates.
Correct. And actually, if you look at our grade distribution for that, it's pretty equal to the entire student body. It's, for us, being chronically absent isn't necessarily a predictor of student failure. It is a indicator, though, that our teachers have to work harder when a kid isn't there in class, and our teachers are doing that. And in theory, if they didn't have to do that, they'd have other time to serve student needs in a different way. So it definitely helps the whole organization if kids come to school, right? But it isn't for us the same predictor of failure as it is for others, right? So there's some factors in here that like make sense at the meta level, but maybe don't make sense for District 99. You know, EL path to proficiency. The more EL students you have, the harder it's going to be to hit that number.
Get that number.
So it isn't like, are you responding appropriately? Are you offering appropriate educational supports? Are you doing what you can? It's one test on one day, and it's a test that students, like, it means nothing to them, right? So schools that have very small numbers of EL students, it's gonna be a lot easier for them to get those points, right? And a school that's more diverse, like North and South are always gonna be different in that than a school that has almost no EL students, right? So there's some factors in here. Yeah, we should look at them and we should work at them, but that isn't all that we should do. It doesn't tell the whole story. And then these factors are gonna change.
You
Like
said-
fine arts,
yeah. How
college
much
and
is
career
the fine
readiness,
arts gonna come for?
Next year.
5%,
So they're
and then
gonna
chronic
take away from-
absenteeism
That's gonna
goes
go
down to 5.
Oh, okay.
What goes down 5?
Chronic absenteeism goes to 5%, fine arts goes to
So
5%.
we're likely to see our percentage probably accelerate.
Just on that alone.
Potentially,
Because
but
we-
you don't know how it
Because it's
compares to all
also
the other schools, right?
Sure.
Graduating class.
But this
But I mean,
board,
if we're just looking at what's gonna improve next year, that in and of itself should be an improvement.
Yes.
If
Although
our,
fine arts won't go into play for a couple of years.
couple of years.
oh, okay. I thought
But this
that's-
district has had for a very long time a fine arts graduation requirement, has well supported the arts and the fine arts. So we're very well poised
Yes.
to get a good amount of points in that fine arts area, right? But I don't know how that compares to the other 800 schools in the state, right?
I think one point which you mentioned, which we need to address or highlight for a second, is the fantastic job that our teachers are doing at both North and South. Because with a chronic absenteeism rate this high at both schools, for our graduation rates to still remain as high as they are, that means those teachers, as you said, Hank, are going above and beyond to make sure that those students stay on track. So once again, we have awesome teachers and they need to be commended. because the graduation rates would not be this high if it wasn't for the dedication of our teachers and staff.
Speaking of graduation rates, Gina?
Okay.
Can I ask you one more question?
Oh, yeah.
So back to the scorecard, so obviously like these numbers, right, when people decide on moving to a new community, they look at things like this. Are there other impacts that we should be like, does this translate into state funding, or like, does any, like, what else does the score actually?
The only way this would translate in any type of support or funding would be if we were on the very lowest group.
Okay.
And then there is some funding, some support that goes into place. But commendable, there's no
Okay.
funding for
It's
that.
more about reputation and comparison. Okay.
And when I talk about the reputation of our school districts in the community, I mean, the last 5 to 10 years has been a population boom to Downers Grove area in particular, and in large part because of the quality of our schools. So that's where I think I'm seeing a disconnect between what the community perceives our district versus how we're being scored upon in the report card.
I don't know, the top, what would be a score that you feel would be
I don't know,
appropriate?
I don't
I
see.
mean, we're in the top, but 20,
Yeah,
15
maybe
to
I'm-
20% of schools.
Maybe I'm biased, I
Yeah.
just don't see us as seeing, 20% of high schools being better than Downers Grove South and
On these metrics, yes.
Well.
Yeah, if they have no EL population and they're getting 100% of those
Yeah.
points, that's you're immediately getting a big chunk of
But you know
a 5-point advantage.
When a community member looks at this, they don't say with the caveat
That
with
is
these metrics.
That is one of the challenges of all of these metrics is that people want to just look at a number and think that they
Yes.
know that means something.
Yes.
But the importance is what's underneath here and what we're actually doing to serve our student body. And as I said, there's a lot of great things that happen in this district. You saw them tonight. That doesn't show up on our school report card,
Yes.
right? And so
And-
part of our reputation is really trunk or treat and our kids in the community
It's the whole
and sharing.
picture.
It's the whole picture.
yeah. It's a
If people are just going to this little graphic and making an assumption about what District 99 is, they're missing a whole chunk of the story. And unfortunately, we don't get the opportunity to reflect all of that in here. This is one set of measures. No, they're important, and they're
And
things
there's
that we
some very
work on.
positive,
Yeah.
I mean.
I don't mean to undermine the positivity, I'm just
Yeah,
saying that there
I
may be
think-
somewhat of a disconnect there.
I think I get what Don is saying. I mean, looking at this and how they're scoring it, our story is not told if somebody goes and look on Zillow and find the report card, right?
Yes.
Correct.
So we don't feel, because our story isn't here, for the most part, we don't feel like it's a proper representation of all the great things that we represent.
Well, you look at your student body that, are graduating. They're getting into colleges that they were wanting to get into. They're going into trades that they want to. They're going to TCD to get more knowledge and to help them in their lives to begin with, or to practice something to see if they really like it before they spend the money to be an architect or to be a whatever. And so those are the success stories that really make our district what it is to see each one of our students getting where they want to be. I mean, so that you can't put a number on. You can't,
Exactly.
you can't say, hey, 95% of our students go on to do what they want to do and be successful at it. That number can't be associated with any of these numbers. And that's really our story to tell,
So both things are true, right? We need to, yes, take these numbers seriously and work to close gaps where we can in here. And also recognize like year-over-year growth with different groups of student bodies is going to be a challenge to do, right? That doesn't mean we don't take it on. It doesn't mean we don't do the work. We do all of those things. But at the same time, there's more to our story than what this graphic or these measures will tell, and it's our job to tell that story as well.
Right. And there needs to be kind of a, I guess, maybe a paragraph that can go with it that explains, you know, where our students
Well, I
are
also
at.
think people that are choosing this community aren't just going to this visualization and saying, do I move to Downers Grove?
No, but if I'm living in the city of Chicago and I've got a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, and I'm looking at Lyons Township, Hinsdale Central, York, and Downers Grove, and that probably happens pretty routinely. They're gonna look at the report card score, and, you know, if the Downers Grove schools are significantly lower than those other comparable schools, that could be a perception issue. And that's where I'm like, well, should we pour resources in to try and inflate this because of that problem, or is that just a superficial issue?
We'll come to you over the next couple of weeks, couple of months
Yeah.
with those areas and
We'll talk
can make
about
some
I think it
decisions
helps
around
though
it.
that like everyone, I mean, it's sort of like the SAT argument. Everyone at least every school has it and is measured by those, you know, whether they're, you know, whether they shift or fluctuate or whatever. And hopefully most people look at, you know, that's one thing they look at.
It's one thing, yes.
But they look at our runners too.
Runners.
You still have a story you can put behind it. You got an essay, you got grades, you have if you were athletic or in the band or in choir. So you still get to put a story behind that when you position yourself to that university. I think the point we're making here, this doesn't position us. If I'm moving from California and I know nothing of any of these areas, and I have this in front of me, because I don't know Downers Grove from Elmhurst, and if we all are on par for cost of living, you know, houses, Don's right, they're going to, you know, because they don't have anything else to compare it to. An SAT, you have that, but you have your whole story behind you to support who you are.
So there are other parts of the report card as well that we're not looking at, right?
Today.
Here, today. Well, we're not planning, right? There's information, for example, on career and technical education. For example, you can look at how many students take a CT concentrator, which is like a path in a CTE courses. You can look at post-high school placement. How many students have gone into like remedial course? Like, there's a lot of information in the report card. It's not just this.
But this is the most visible.
This is probably the
to
most
the average,
visible.
to the person that's doing this search.
But I mean, in terms of telling a story, right? There are other aspects of the report card that are there to look at. And each year they add a little bit. It feels like they add a little bit more. Some were there last year, but there's some additional.
But it is choices, and it is where we spend our time and where we work. I think there are some areas here, like climate survey, like, I don't know how much room we can make in chronic absenteeism, but getting it on people's radars that is impacting these scores, that those scores people do look at when they value our community. You know, does that make a difference when a kid asks their parents if they can stay home that day? I don't know.
I mean, I think there's also national news about these things. I
Yes.
mean, I just read an article recently on the uptick in working from home, which
Mhm.
my company is dialing back on, going back into the office, so that's contributing. So hopefully people are to the point of not looking at the data, they're also following trends and seeing this is not just a.
Well, we've been talking about chronic absenteeism for years.
It's just
I mean,
far worse now than it.
Yes, yeah.
Right.
But, I mean, it's not something that we haven't been trying to
Correct.
accomplish. So it's very difficult to change maybe some of our parents.
Adults are facing the same, employers can't get employees to come into the office.
Yeah, I mean,
They're like-
you know, it's not an easy task,
Right.
changing the norm, so,
But it helps frame the challenge.
It does.
but it's not a new problem.
Sorry for hijacking your presentation.
Sorry.
So, I want to talk a little bit tonight about graduation rates. 50% of that designation, as you may recall, about half of that schoolhouse, right, was for graduation rate. The state looks at 3 graduation rates. They look at a 4-year, a 5-year, and a 6-year. This is obviously the 4-year. So we have the 5 years, which we always look at 5 years of data, and then I put on the 5-year average. So for last year's graduating class, definitely we were down a little bit. One of the things the state has also done, and we've talked about this over the years, especially in terms of students who are special education students, IEP students, who go to transition.
Right.
And how we can't graduate them until, even though they've met the requirements, right?
22.
Until they leave transition, whether that's 22 or whether they, for whatever reason, leave earlier, whatever the case may be. So
And
the
some of
state-
those students will never be captured because
Right.
now they've added another
Another
year
year.
of transition.
And there's not a 7.
There's not a year 7 for graduation.
Oh.
So some of our students will never graduate in these numbers because they are participating in our programming all the way through to age 22, which is another decision that the state made, just like adding 5 mental health days, but they didn't come back and then adjust the metrics to reflect those changes.
One of the things the state did do was say that 93% would get you 100% of the points, 100 points towards it. So they have made some modifications to the way they calculate it. I will say that graduation rate is 50% of our rating, and 60% of that is based on the 4-year. So I focus more on the 4-year just because that's the majority of it. Another 30% is for the 5-year, and then 10% for the 6-year. So the weight that they're giving to those 3 years is different, with the majority going on to the 4th year. And this is district data, so while it does factor into our designation, that's only a designation for the schools, not for the district. So our 4-year rate in 2023 was about 1% lower, and fairly close to our average. Our 5-year rate was 94.3, so it was an increase, but it only factored in for 30%. But still, that's good. We saw an increase, right?
Can you explain what the 5-year graduation
Yes,
rate
yes.
So
actually
it's,
measures?
so it's the students who, the students that are left from that 4-year, and then those students that graduate from that group. So the bulk of our T99 kids are staying with us. They're staying with us for multiple years, so they're
So
not
can you
going to
walk
be
back a
captured.
slide? I want to walk through this, just so that everybody
But they're
gets it.
not going to be captured in this year's
No.
graduation rate.
So-
It's the future. So let's say the graduating in '23, they're going to stay with us for 3 years. So they're going to go into '24, '25, and '26. So these are students, though, that maybe were to graduate in '20
Yes.
or '21 that are going into this number.
Got it.
Yep.
So the 5
So it's not the
years,
current.
next year's 5 years will be, if we take that 93.2, that difference of 6.8% is how much of that 6.8%
Will be in
will,
next year.
just of that group,
Great.
graduates the next year, right? So, and then the next year is, of that group that doesn't graduate, what percentage of that group the next year graduates? But you'll see
Very
with
small
Transition
numbers.
Center, yeah, it's very small
Small
numbers, and
numbers.
one student starts to make a giant difference, right? And some of our students won't graduate until year 7, which isn't factored into our graduation rates at all.
Do some of the students drop out?
Yeah, we do.
Because,
Yeah.
you know, they've been in our program for 1 or 2 years in the transition center. They're still eligible for 2 more years, but they're working and they decide, you know, I can do this on my own.
Some
Or
of
their
them will
parents
graduate, but
decide.
some will just disappear, and then we don't get to graduate them.
And that counts against.
And that
And it
counts against us.
us.
So it's important that we kind of keep track of those.
Try.
I know, I'm just saying.
And so we want 5-year and 6-year average to be high.
We want them all
We
to be
want 'em
high.
all.
We want
Yeah.
them all to be high. Okay.
Yeah. 4 is that core group, right, that graduates. 5 is the group that didn't graduate in the 4. You want them all to graduate. You know, ideally, you'd have 100% in year 4, right? But then, if not 100% in year 4, then 100% in year 5, right? So that's kind of how you want it to work.
But to get 100% of the points for the school, they only have to have 93, which is why when I showed the house, at least for North High School, it had 100%. They got 100% of the points. So that's where it also gets confusing, right? Because I'm showing you rates that are under 100%.
Right.
But also, remember, our largest group of transition students is at South High.
Yep.
Our largest group of EL students, which is another group that sometimes has more things to work through so that they can graduate, is also at South High. So when you say like, why is North getting all 50 points and South isn't? It's not necessarily just students dropping out, it's the population of students we're serving at South High.
Is different.
Sorry, did I steal your thunder? Okay.
We talked a little bit about 5th. It talks about 6th year. So upcoming topics, I said we're breaking this into 3. Will be 9th grade on track. We'll look at that next time. We'll look at some SAT comparisons. We had done that the previous year, as you may recall, in terms of some of the area high school districts. And then in December at the meeting, if I remember correctly, not the workshop, but at the meeting, we will be talking about chronic absenteeism and what the schools are currently working on in terms of absenteeism in general.
Has the increase in chronic absenteeism correlated to an increase or a decrease in graduation rate in a comparable fashion? Like, has the increased chronic absenteeism impacted?
Is there proximate cause
Yeah.
between the two?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
In fact, we have students who fall into the chronically absent rate who are doing very well in school. Not all students, of course.
Yeah.
But we have.
I'd say the correlation is.
Are you noticing it tapering off a little bit, or starting to go trend in the other direction?
A little bit.
Ours is getting better.
But like 2023 was worse than 2022, so are we going back to what we were before? That's where we're working through it.
The correlation has definitely switched because of all the online resources, supports, all of those things that we have in place, we said, the work that our teachers are doing. It used to be a predictor. If you were chronically absent, you were going to be failing. It's the other way around now. If you're failing courses, you're likely also chronically absent, right? So the determination is flipped. All right, any other questions?
No, I would just say I think we are doing a lot of great things in our district now. We're going to do it.
Thank you. All right, more to come in the coming weeks and months.
Thank you, Gina.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for your short
It was
presentation.
very informative.
Made it longer.
That's the joke,
Everyone gets the joke.
Hey, it's some of the most important work we do is when Gina's up here talking, it's curriculum, instruction, teaching, learning. That's the core of our business.
And that's a shame that we don't have people listening.
Would you
they're
say
tuning
though
in.
you're in favor of those like graphic, like the schoolhouse? And
Oh,
that,
yeah.
like, because that's gonna be an easy way for people to understand the.
I don't agree with all of necessarily how the metrics are determined and how they're calculated. Obviously, there's minutia inside of that detail that we can argue about whether it's appropriate or not. But for what it is, the better you can make it clear for people to understand, I think that that's an improvement. Yeah. Now, I hope that people get interested in then that next step of what makes up that stuff underneath that, rather than just jumping to conclusions off of what a number on a screen means, so. All right, school maintenance grant. We've been bringing this the last several years. Do you want to just provide a quick overview, Jury?
Sure. This is a matching grant from the state, and the state, before we can apply for this grant application, the state does require school boards to approve. basically the matching portion, which is $50,000. We're gonna use it towards probably HVAC
Some kind of capital
projects,
improvement,
right,
yeah.
that we'll be doing next summer. The deadline is in December, and then we should hear sometime in January and be ready to bid out the projects then.
So remember, we spend somewhere around, $750,000 to $1 million a year in capital improvement. So we will be spending at least $50,000
Yeah.
in capital projects.
You think?
This is then matching at least $50,000 of that from the state.
Yeah.
If the board approves it tonight.
Yes.
Any other questions?
No. Nope.
All right. ISB resolutions. Ken is your resolutions chair.
Has everybody had a chance to look at the resolutions?
You just glanced.
None of these, I've talked with Hank about this, obviously not being here last year, or Chris was here last year. None of these resolutions have a strong impact on us. So I would recommend that we go with what the state wants to do, what our larger body wants to do, and I would not have any objections. But that's open to any comments from anybody.
And, Chris did this for the years when it was some rather interesting ones up on there.
Yeah.
These are definitely different than the ones that Chris saw in the past. These
Yeah.
are a little more,
Nobody's carrying guns.
yeah, those ones are not there. So,
Very heated debate at the conference last year.
yeah.
Yeah. So that's
Ken
good.
definitely got the win on this one in
Yeah,
comparison.
yeah.
Good.
Cooler heads prevailed.
Yeah.
All right, so Ken, unless anybody tells you something different.
Got it.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, our action item?
Can I get a motion for the Board of Education to approve submission of a grant application for a fiscal year 2024 school maintenance project grant?
So moved.
Moved, Sherrill seconds.
Thank you. Terry Pavasich.
Aye.
Cheryl Fuller. Aye. Jenny Hagstrom.
Aye.
Kara Caston. Aye. Ken Dawson.
Aye.
Chris Espinoza.
Aye.
And Don Runner.
Aye, motion carries. Item
No
7.
visitors?
No visitors? Okay, thank
No,
you.
sir.
And then item 8, I'll need a motion for the Board of Education to go into closed session for A, the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees, specific individuals who serve as independent contractors in a park, recreational, or educational setting, or specific volunteers of the district or legal counsel for the district, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee, a specific individual who serves as an independent contractor in a park, recreational, or educational setting, or a volunteer of the district, or against legal counsel for the district to determine its validity. B, collective negotiating matters between the district and its employees or their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees.
So moved.
Second.
Motion, and Ken second.
Thank you. Terry Pavasich.
Aye.
Ken Dawson.
Aye.
Chris Espinoza.
Aye.
Cheryl Fuller. Aye. Jenny Hagstrom.
Aye.
Kara Caston.
Aye.
And Don Runner.
Aye, motion carries. We'll be going into closed session for those members of the public who are viewing this online. The board will not be taking any action other than to adjourn after coming out of closed session. Thank you.
Should have come and said.